Hey friends, this week sparks can fly as Mars butts into the skirmish between Saturn and Uranus as the three of them form what's called a T-square aspect pattern. On Monday, we talked about the potentially frustrating quality that can arise when Mars opposes Saturn like it is right now, and this is one component of this T-square. Today, we're going to talk about another part of this T-square, which is that energizing dynamism of Mars square Uranus, and I'm going to share some important advice for how to engage with this potential. For a quick recap, the big astro aspect this year is a square between Saturn and Uranus. Faster moving planets can move into relationship with these two all year long, and when they do, they'll serve as triggers, unleashing some of the potential in the Saturn-Uranus square, but also introducing new energy of their own into the mix, and that's the case this week with Mars. A T-square is usually described as a tense or challenging aspect pattern, but what you don't hear as much is that it's also one of the most productive. Think of it this way, when you're irritated, when you're bothered or frustrated, you're more likely to take action, right? You're more likely to want to do something about it to get beyond those feelings. People with natal T-squares often do great things with those aspects in their charts. But I don't want to downplay the difficulty inherent in this process, so let's talk about some of the challenges that arise when Mars squares Uranus, as well as some of the gifts. Mars points to many of those qualities that we describe as egocentric. Mars helps us get our way, if that's our intention, and Mars even relates to our intention to take action, even if that means a choice not to take an action. In other words, where there's action, there's Mars. Uranus electrifies and ignites what it touches, and like Mars, it also correlates with a kind of selfishness, in the sense that it has to do with an impulse to liberate us from any restrictions to being fully ourself. When these two planets come together, we get high voltage, a seemingly unstoppable urge to act out, and an unleashing of our ego impulses, our drives, and our desires. Passions can flare up quickly, and the speed itself of this process can become the problem. If we're experiencing some Mars-Saturn style of frustration due to some of those experiences that I described in my last video, Uranus says to Mars, let it rip. Let him have it. Don't let yourself be held down. Impatience can get you in trouble here. And if you're driven by these fiery passions, you might act out in inappropriate ways that surprise even yourself. Tensions can accelerate quickly into explosions, maybe especially in response to limiting or negating external forces or people that you feel are preventing you from free self-expression or just from getting your way. Mars is in Leo, and at its worst, that can be like our inner Veruca Salt from Willy Wonka, if you remember that classic film. That demanding inner child that wants its desires filled, and right now.
She can't have one.
Who says I can't?
The man with a funny hat.
I want one. I want a golden goose.
Uranus also carries the energy of disruption, and Mars can have to do with innovation. So there's massive creative potential here as these two come together, as long as we bring consciousness to bear and aim to get a little distance from our purely desire-based drives. The fabulous astrologer Jessica Murray recommends that we shift gears away from egoic reaction under this aspect and steer toward creative disruption instead. The trick is to catch our triggered attachment early, but that takes a lot of practice. Most of us let these kind of feelings take over in the moment. In fact, it seems like there's no time at all between reaction and action. In the worst case, we jump right in and ride that roller coaster to its finish without looking back. And only in the aftermath do we start to become aware of the results of our too impulsive actions. To remedy this, Pema Chodron suggests that we develop consciousness around this part of our attachment nature. Attachment seems to be one of the core underlying causes of the more negative expressions of this dynamic. Chodron teaches that if we can begin to equate not acting out with a kind of friendliness to ourselves, then we can find the motivation we need to sit on our hands or back down or zip our lips shut in these moments. Then we can start to get perspective on our desire nature and get more of our psyche and spirit involved in the choices we make as we begin to move away from impulsive reaction and more toward conscious action. And as with so many things, a regular meditation practice can instill the habit to sit with our discomfort in these moments or our mental squirreliness a bit longer than we normally might. It's in these moments that we can get that tiny window of objective witnessing to make a different choice, a choice that isn't compelled by our attachment. Chodron's wise advice here is that if we can learn to relax in the place where the urge is strong, we'll get a bigger perspective on what's happening. So, my advice, practice not biting the hook this week and let me know how that turns out. Well, I hope you've enjoyed today's Astro message, and I hope you don't resist the urge to hit that like button before tuning out. That'll really help me out, and I appreciate it. And I appreciate you. And until next time, take good care.